All right, Chad Wilson, All Eyes DB Camp. Today we're talking about how to crossover run. When you come out of that back pedal, it's time to start running. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. We're going to talk about that today. All right, Chad Wilson, All Eyes DB Camp. Today we're talking about how to crossover run. When you come out of that back pedal, it's time to start running. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. We're going to talk about that today. All right, so you're covering a receiver, you're doing a good job in your back pedal, but inevitably at some point, that receiver is going to break your cushion. So now we've got to turn out of that back pedal and we've got to get down the field. Hopefully you've turned before the receiver's gotten even with you and you still have him underneath you. And if that is the case, there is a crossover run that you need to do, and today we're going to talk about the right way for you to do that. So the first thing you've got to remember in your crossover run is this front shoulder. So I'm in my pedal, I'm now open and I'm in my crossover run. You've got to keep this front shoulder down. As you're running down the field, all right, and I'm going to turn sideways, you don't want to have your upper body leaning this way as you crossover run, because anything that you have to break on downfield is going to be very difficult if you've committed everything this way. If your upper body is this way, your feet are running this way, if you've got to break downhill on a curl or a comeback or a dig, it's going to be very, very difficult if your front shoulder is raised. So the first thing you got to remember is having this front shoulder down as you go in that crossover run. Focus on having that front shoulder down just in case the route breaks off and it's a comeback, curl, dig, anything shorter than a deep ball. Having your front shoulder down is going to really help you break on those routes. All right, the second thing, and we're staying on the front shoulder. On top of it being down, we must also have this front shoulder open. What do I mean by that? Having your front shoulder open, pointing towards the receiver or downhill, as opposed to this. This is your front shoulder being closed. It's going to be very difficult for you to cover the receiver if he's below you, if you've closed this front shoulder and he has access to your back to break behind your back and get in your blind spot. So you want to keep this front shoulder open. So as you're in that crossover run, on top of it being down, you have to keep this shoulder open so you can see the receiver, and if he happens to break behind your blind spot, you can plant easily, turn, and get to the receiver. If your shoulder is closed and that receiver breaks behind you, you're going to end up having a speed turn, which opens you up to a blind spot and takes your eyes off of the receiver, or trying to break back this way is going to take too many steps and it'll be very difficult for you to get to that receiver and break on the football if your shoulder is closed. So point number 2 is keeping your shoulder open when you're in your crossover run. All right, we've talked about the shoulders. Now, what about the lower body? Okay, a lot of times when I'm teaching a guy a crossover run, they may get the upper body part right, but then their hips are turned this way. So their shoulders open, but they're running like this. All right, and that becomes very, very uncomfortable. You're not going to want to stay in that for a very long period of time. So when you're doing your crossover run, on top of your shoulders being open, you must now have your hips open as well. Have your hips pointing in, or if you're pointing towards the sideline in your crossover run, they're facing the sideline and not upfield. By upfield, I mean your hips are turned. You don't want to have your shoulders open like this, but then your hips are closed, because it becomes the same problem when you've got to break on a route. If a route goes behind your back, it's still going to take more steps than it should for you to rotate those hips around and get to the receiver. Or again, you're going to feel like you need to do that speed turn, and there's all kind of bad news with that speed turn. If you're trying to break on a guy behind your back, they could fake behind your back, have you spin, and then go back inside. Those are all the things that happen when you get into the habit of speed turning. So in your crossover run, front shoulder down, open, but also your hips are open. So you want to be able to run with your hips facing straight ahead of you. So it should be like this. All right, so your front shoulder and your hips are both pointing downfield. All right, and the final point. So I'm going to turn sideways for this one so we can get a good look at it. One of the other things that I see DBs doing when I first start teaching them the crossover run is they do what I call pitter patter. So they're just taking steps like this, they're just running like that, and they're not really running. When you're doing a crossover run, it is that, a crossover run. So I'm going to show you what it has to look like. And it's not pitter patter steps, because when a guy's coming off the ball and running downfield on you, you're not gonna do those pitter-patter steps. And if you do, it won't be long before you end up having to turn your shoulders, turn your back, turn your hips, and now he's got you pushed upfield. So I'm gonna show you what this needs to look like. Move the camera along with me. It's a full crossover run, all right? You're gonna see me running over. My feet are crossing over as I run. I'm here. And it's not this. It's not pitter-patter steps, because you do have to gain ground, you do have to gain depth, and you are trying to stay over the top of that receiver for as long as you can. For as long as you can, you want to keep this receiver underneath you with your shoulder open, staying over the top of him. If you pitter-patter, he's going to get even with you. You're going to end up having to turn long before you need to. So the final thing you need to remember is don't pitter-patter, but crossover run. Crossover run in your crossover run. All right, so in summary, 4 things you got to remember in your crossover run. Number 1, front shoulder down so you can break downhill. Number 2, keep your shoulder open so they can't attack your blind spot. Number 3, also keep your hips open so you can get out of your breaks faster. And number 4, don't pitter-patter, actually cross over so you can run fast and gain depth in your crossover run. All right, hope this video helped you. If it did, go ahead and give it a like and a share, and by all means hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next high quality video like this one that I'm putting out all the time on playing defensive back. On top of that, if you want some more advanced tips, tricks, techniques, drills, etc., go ahead and join me in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. I've got over 125 videos in there that's going to take you to the elite level. I'll have a link to it down in the description. Go ahead, check it out. It's a great investment if you're trying to take your game to the top. As always, All Eyes DB Camp. Consistency breeds results.